in giant hangars in there working on the robotic aircraft and programming the robotic maintenance droids that are in there working on the equipment. Humans are obsolete. That's why 10 years ago, in the April issue, 2000, of Wired Magazine, Why the Future Doesn't Need Us, Bill Joy. You'll want to read that article. In fact, let's search that for people. Bill Joy, Why the Future Doesn't Need Us. And he has a meeting with several hundred top technology leaders and owners, and they just said, they had a discussion. Do we kill everybody? We don't need them anymore? Or do we give them mindless games and entertainment? And the decision is basically soft kill you, slowly sterilize you, and get rid of your generations that way. And in the third world, they'll have wars and starvation to get rid of folks. But we're just not even meant to be here. This whole Google NSA global grid is an extermination grid in their own words. And I know you're not going to listen till it's too late. I understand most of you won't. Some people, though, are going to listen now. Why the Future Doesn't Need Us, Bill Joy. And was I right about the date? April 2000. Blow that up for folks so they can see it. My little wire fell out here. Let me plug that back in so I get my audio again. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I said I'd take your phone calls, and we'll do that till 8 after, and then Steve Watson's going to be joining us. Let's go ahead and talk to Austin, listening in New York to 1310 AM. And Austin, good to have you on with us, sir.
Well, Alex, it's so unbelievable to get through. I've tried so many times, and I'm actually glad that you're kind of all over the place with topics today, because what I wanted to talk about, I wasn't sure if it was going to be what you'd want to hear today. But first of all, I just want to thank you and Watson and Paul Craig Roberts and all the guys that you have.
Well, listen, Austin, I want to thank you, but let me be specific. Maybe once or twice a week I say, I want to hear from police that have got intel on evacuations in the Gulf. Or I'll say, I want to hear what you think about a depression. I mean, if I don't specifically say we're on this topic, it's always wide open.
Okay, well, the reason I called, about a month ago, you were talking about the interfacing of different police agencies with the federal government to control population when they have a need. And you shouted out to law enforcement and military people to call in to kind of add a little bit of foundation to the things you were saying. And I tried to get in for a couple of days, and I couldn't. I'm a retired lieutenant from New York State, from the Correction Department. And I was the regional training lieutenant for the southern part of New York State. I was responsible for the in-service training of a couple thousand staff. And I was also very involved in peace officer status training in New York State and also special ops training. So I've got a kind of a background in this stuff. And when you were talking about what the state is being taught to do by the federal government, it all of a sudden clicked things I remembered from my past career. Like back in the 70s, when I was working for the Correction Department, they had a riot. I'm sure you heard of the Attica riot.
Yes.
And the Correction Department decided to have what they call a Correction Emergency Response Team, kind of like corrections version of SWAT, to deal with prison disturbances. And it was at a time of fiscal crisis in New York State. We weren't getting raises and all that kind of stuff. They had no money. And yet we were buying all this equipment. And I remember us guys asking, like, how do we afford this stuff? And yet we can't run our prisons and we have to save paper clips. Oh, it's federal money. And I'm like, federal money being used to buy equipment for state correction response teams. And I remember one of my supervisors telling me, yeah, well, the agreement is that in time of need, we will interface during civil disruptions with the federal government because they've agreed to buy us all this neat stuff.
And again, they take money from the state, they send it back, and they make the state dependent on the feds. That's why the feds lobbied at the state legislatures in the last 20 years to where when states seize drug money, a state or local agency, they don't get to keep any of it. But if you give it to the feds, the states get 85% back, making you always do drug raids under federal control. Everything to destroy states and local control. Go ahead.
And I watched guys. I mean, like I said, I worked for like 30 plus years for the state. So I saw a lot of stuff, and I met a lot of guys, and I just paid attention. And I remember thinking to myself, this stuff isn't legit. You know, there's just something not right about all this stuff. And I one thing that happened actually almost 20 years after that, you remember the Woodstock concert?
Yes.
Well, they had a 25th anniversary concert at Woodstock in New York State.
I remember a bunch of anarchists burned stuff.
Right. Well, what happened, what was really funny was SEMO, which is the State Emergency Management Organization, New York State's version of FEMA, set up this command center. And at the time I was a sergeant, I hadn't been promoted to lieutenant yet, I got tapped to sit in this command post to just be ready for whatever during this big concert, because they knew there was going to be lots and lots of people. And it was unbelievable. They had federal agencies, Civil Air Patrol was there, and they had set up this scenario that they fortunately never had to use in one of the maximum security prisons in New York. They had set up a staging area in the back recreation yard using military surplus cots, blankets, and pillows, where if they needed to arrest mass numbers of people, they were going to be able to take them to the rear recreation yard of a New York State prison to house them.
And really, that's a compartmentalized concentration camp drill, and then evidence later came out, but you say you were there, that those were provocateur anarchists that set the few fires. Stay there. I want to come back to you. I know we got a lot of other callers, but this is key information. And now, at the G20 in the U.S., England, Canada, it's the same. They hire provocateurs that the rest of the police don't know are provocateurs to sell the media, the police, everyone, that citizens have to be arrested. And whether it was the RNC in 2004 or other events, they then take them to these emergency FEMA centers.
Global meltdowns, massive unemployment, endless wars, a new currency crisis, financially and morally bankrupt. A great and terrible storm is approaching. So what's the best way to get ready, to get prepared for hard times ahead? Introducing Off the Grid News, a weekly newsletter for independent patriots who want practical advice on how to survive and prosper in an increasingly dangerous world. It's the best way to get a black belt in emergency preparedness, survival skills, and off-the-grid living. Off the Grid News is fiercely independent, all about self-reliance, and packed with helpful information on survival gardening, food preparation, alternative energy, herbal medicines, privacy and security, as well as God, gold, and guns, with absolutely no apologies. And the best part, this $100 a year service is now free of charge for our listeners. That's right, free for our listeners who sign up at offthegridnews.com. That's offthegridnews.com. You can sign up free at offthegridnews.com. offthegridnews.com.
The question is, where should the American people draw their line in the sand?
What have we got? A republic or a monarchy?
A republic is based on a constitution which protects minority rights.
Not democracy, not mob rule, two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner.
So they think they own our land, they think they own our water, children, our education, our money.
We have to define who we are and what we will tolerate.
Somebody's going to ask you what you did during the Patriot Uprising.
You have been warned.
We have the facts. We have the Constitution. We have the Bill of Rights. We have common law. Knowledge is power, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm so excited to be able to offer you Don't Tread on Me, Rise of the Republic. Tyranny is upon us, but liberty and the sleeping giant that is the American people is rising. A new tool in the info war. Don't Tread on Me. Order it at Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139 and support independent, patriotic Liberty films.
We all know that the Berkey water purification systems are the most trusted name in water filtration. As an authorized Berkey dealer for over 4 years and serving thousands of satisfied customers, the Berkey Guy offers amazing specials for Berkey water systems. The revolutionary Berkey light systems include a set of self-sterilizing and recleanable black purification elements that purify water by removing chlorine, pathogenic bacteria, cysts, and parasites to non-detectable levels, and removes harmful chemicals such as herbicides and pesticides. Order the Berkey light system today, complete with 2 black Berkey elements for only $209, and the Berkey Guy will include 3 Sport Berkey Berkey water bottles and ship everything to you free of charge. That's right, 3 Sport Berkey water bottles and free shipping, an $87 value, yours free, but only for a limited time. Just call the Berkey Guy at 1-877-886-3653 now to order. That's 1-877-886-3653 or order online now at GoBerkey.com. That's GoBerkey.com today.
Look, everything is about brainwashing police, military, and local officials, and the public. I have all the Pentagon documents. I've made films about it. We've had expert guests, former JAG officer generals on to tell you there is a takeover by the Pentagon, and now it's called Northcom, 400,000 troops they want domestically, regular Army and Marines doing checkpoints, mayors in Illinois and California and New York State calling for, quote, martial law. Same thing in Wisconsin. It's all exposed in my film, The Obama Deception. It is exposed in this documentary that they've been censoring. You can get 4 of the DVDs for $19.95. That's less than $5 a piece.